There was a time when silence in our home felt comforting. Not empty, not strained, just calm. The kind of silence that wraps around you like a blanket after a long day. That was before it changed. Before I noticed the weight of her footsteps softening, or the way her eyes stopped lingering on mine. Anna and I had been married 12 years. Met in college, 2 kids, a modest house outside of Seattle. I worked in IT security, long hours, quiet stress. She ran a small photography business from home. We weren't flashy, but we were safe. Solid. Or so I thought. On the outside, our life looked ideal. Morning routines with half-burnt toast, lazy Sundays, our son Ethan's soccer games, and little Mia's bedtime stories. But in the shadows, something small and invisible had already begun to crack. A shift. I couldn't name it then, but I felt it. A glance too short. A hug too loose. The smallest of goodbyes that felt like she wasn't planning on returning, even if she did. There's this moment that stays with me. A Wednesday. I came home early, a rare thing. I walked into the kitchen and saw her jump slightly, as if startled. Her phone was face down. She smiled, that quick, forced kind, and asked if I wanted coffee. I remember saying no. I remember the silence afterward. Not the comforting kind. They say if you boil a frog slowly, it won't notice it's dying until it's too late. That was our marriage, and I didn't realize how cold I'd become to the temperature change. At first, I blamed myself. I was working longer hours. Maybe I'd been too distant. Maybe I'd stopped noticing her new haircut, the way her laugh had grown quieter. I convinced myself it was just life. We were tired parents, not newlyweds. But deep down, a quiet voice kept whispering, "No, something's wrong." Anna started locking her phone. Not just a password, Face ID, fingerprint, the works. When I asked why, she laughed it off. "It's for client privacy, Dan. You know that." I nodded. I even smiled. But her eyes didn't match her tone. That's the thing about love. It teaches you every micro-expression, every breath. And I knew when hers changed. She'd go out more. Client meetings that ran late. Editing sessions in coffee shops she'd never mentioned before. I offered to join her once, just to bring her lunch. She said she was already done. Her voice was sweet, but her body flinched, so subtle, anyone else would miss it. I didn't. One night, I watched her from the doorway as she sat curled up with her laptop. The glow of the screen lit her face, and she was smiling. Not at the screen, but at something behind it. A memory? A message? I don't know, but it wasn't about me. Then came the perfume. Something new. Floral, unfamiliar. She said it was a sample from a client's wedding shoot. I said nothing. I was afraid that if I asked the wrong question, I'd get the right answer. I started keeping track. A journal. Her movements. Her moods. Her lies. Yes, I started calling them that, even if I hadn't proven anything. When love becomes suspicion, even silence screams. The irony? I still loved her. Desperately. I wasn't looking for betrayal. I was praying I was wrong. But deep down, I already knew. It happened on a rainy Thursday. I was working from home, and her phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. She was upstairs with the kids, giving them a bath. Normally, I wouldn't have looked. I'm not the type to snoop. But something in me, a gut feeling, a trembling fear, pulled my eyes toward it. The screen lit up. Last night was perfect. I can't stop thinking about you. No name, just the message. And a red heart. My fingers went cold. My vision blurred. I picked up the phone, staring at the notification like it had stabbed me in the chest. I didn't unlock it. I didn't need to. That single line tore through me with surgical precision. Perfect. Last night, she told me she was meeting a bride-to-be to discuss a photo shoot. I sat at the table for what felt like hours. Her laughter drifted down the stairs, cheerful and innocent, while my insides disintegrated. The contrast made it worse. She sounded like the woman I married, but now I knew better. When she came downstairs, wrapped in a towel, hair damp and cheeks glowing from the steam, I looked up at her and asked quietly, "How was your meeting last night?" She blinked, just for a moment. That pause, that damn pause, said everything. "Oh," she replied lightly. "It was fine. Long." I nodded, said nothing. And right then, I realized something brutal. I was watching her become a stranger. That night, I lay awake, listening to her breathe beside me. My hand was inches from hers, but I couldn't touch her. I didn't want her to know I was breaking. I needed to be sure. I needed more than a text. But a part of me had already shattered. 3 days later, I couldn't take it anymore. I'd rehearsed it in my head 100 times, what to say, how to say it. But nothing prepares you for the moment when love collides with betrayal. When you look into the eyes of the person you vowed to spend your life with and ask if they've given their heart to someone else. We were sitting on the patio. Evening light scattered through the trees, and the kids were inside watching cartoons. She was scrolling her phone again, fingers quick, smile faint. I was shaking. I couldn't even hold my glass without the ice clinking against the sides. "Anna," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Who is he?" She froze. No slow denial. No innocent confusion. Just stillness. Her phone slipped slightly in her lap. "What are you talking about?" she asked, eyes narrowing, voice careful. "I saw the message," I replied. "You left your phone out." "I didn't go looking. It found me." Silence. Her mouth opened, then closed again. "Dan," she started, but no words followed. "Is it serious?" I asked. "Or was I just background noise while you found your next chapter?" That got to her. Her face changed: pain, guilt, anger. A storm. "It wasn't supposed to happen," she said, voice cracking. "I didn't plan for this. I was lonely. You were gone all the time. I felt invisible." I stood. "So your answer to that was this?" She looked away. He listened to me. I wanted to scream, to throw something. But I just stood there, heart collapsing in on itself. Because it wasn't just the betrayal, it was the justification. The rewriting of our story. "Do the kids know?" I asked quietly. Her eyes widened. "God, no. Please don't." "I won't," I cut in. "But you need to leave. Tonight." She stared at me, horror blooming across her face. "Dan, where would I even go?" I didn't care. Not anymore. I just turned and walked inside, leaving her on the patio with the weight of her choices. I didn't sleep that night. She didn't leave. She stayed curled up on the couch downstairs, wrapped in a blanket, like a guest in a stranger's home. I could hear her crying quietly, trying not to wake the kids. It should have softened me. It didn't. Not after what I saw. Not after what I heard. Upstairs, I lay in our bed, alone now, staring at the ceiling. Every memory replayed like a cruel montage. Our wedding dance. Her smile in the delivery room. The way she used to grab my hand when she was nervous crossing streets. Every single one. Poison now. I kept wondering, was I not enough? Was I just a placeholder? But worse than that was the silence between us. No more lies. No more excuses. Just silence. A canyon neither of us could cross. Around 3 a.m., I went downstairs. She was awake. Eyes red. She sat up when she saw me, but said nothing. I didn't either. We just stared at each other across the living room, two people who once built a life together, now buried in the rubble of it. "Did you love him?" I asked, my voice hoarse. She flinched, looked down at her hands. "I don't know," she whispered. I felt seen. I felt wanted. But it wasn't real. It's not real. Neither is this anymore, I said. Tears ran down her cheeks. "Dan, I'm sorry. I was stupid. Selfish. I wasn't thinking. I never thought you'd find out." And that was the real knife. She didn't regret the act, just the consequences. I left the room. That was the moment something inside me broke. Not a loud shatter. Just a quiet, final snap, like a string pulled too tight for too long. And everything that came after was survival. The days that followed blurred together. I moved through the house like a ghost, making breakfast, packing school lunches, checking emails, nodding through meetings I couldn't remember 5 minutes later. I smiled at the kids. I told jokes. I even laughed once. But inside, I was unraveling. Anna stayed in the guest room. We barely spoke. Just brief, logistical exchanges about the kids, who would pick them up, who would handle homework. Nothing more. I think we were both afraid of what would happen if we really talked again. One afternoon, I sat alone in the garage, staring at an old photo album. Our honeymoon in Greece, her sunburned shoulders, our fingers intertwined. I remember taking those photos, feeling like I had the whole world in my arms. How could that version of us lead to this? I kept asking myself the same question. What did I miss? I went through every argument, every moment of distance, every time I brushed off her sadness with a "we're just tired" or "things will get better." I started blaming myself for not seeing her fade, for not holding her tighter when she slipped. But then I remembered. I did try. I took her out. I asked how she was. I offered help. She said she was fine. Always fine. How do you love someone who's already halfway out the door? That night, I opened her laptop. I know it was wrong, but pain makes you desperate. What I found wasn't photos of him. It was emails. Dozens of them. Long ones. Late night ones. Sharing things she never told me, fears, dreams, even little jokes. She gave him what I thought was ours, and I couldn't unsee it. I sat in the dark, her laptop still open, the glow of the screen casting pale light across my face. My hands trembled, hovering above the keys. I could read more. I could open every message, search for every painful truth. But I didn't. I closed the lid. Because what hurt wasn't just the affair, it was realizing how far she'd gone before I even knew there was a distance. The next morning, I asked her to talk. We sat at the dining table like strangers finalizing a transaction. No emotion, no fire, just hollow exhaustion. I need space, I said. Real space. You can't stay here. She nodded slowly, lips pressed together. Her eyes glistened, but she didn't fight it. Where will I go? She asked. I don't know. Your sister? A friend? I can't breathe with you here. She nodded again, silent. I'm not filing for anything yet, I said. Not until I figure out what this even is. What's left? I understand. No protest. No begging. Just quiet acceptance. That almost hurt more. Later that evening, she packed a small bag. Mia watched from the hallway, clutching her stuffed rabbit. Ethan sat on the stairs, pretending to play on his tablet, but listening to every sound. Mommy will be back soon, she whispered to them. Just for a little while. I didn't correct her. I didn't say maybe not at all. She walked out into the cold night with tears streaming down her face, not even trying to hide them. I watched from the doorway, my heart torn between fury and mourning. As her taillights disappeared into the street, the silence in the house changed. It wasn't just empty. It was final. The house was quiet. Too quiet. I wandered through the rooms, the echoes of laughter and life feeling like ghosts. Anna's scent lingered faintly on the couch, a cruel reminder of what used to be. The kids were asleep, but the silence pressed down on me like a physical weight. Every corner held memories, her favorite mug in the cupboard, the photo frames on the shelves, the messy pile of magazines she never got to organize. It was like walking through a museum of a life we once shared, now frozen in time. I found myself sitting at the kitchen table, staring at the empty chair across from me. That chair, once filled with warmth, now just a hollow space. Sleep became elusive. I'd lie awake, replaying every moment, every smile, every lie. My mind a battlefield of regret and anger. One night, Ethan came into my room, eyes wide. Where's Mom? He asked softly. I don't know, buddy, I whispered, pulling him close. The weight of that answer crushed me. How do you explain the absence of a parent who was supposed to be your forever? Days passed like this, a slow, painful drag. Friends called, but I couldn't find the words. Work became a refuge and a prison. The world outside moved on, but inside, time had stopped. In the quiet, I realized something terrifying. I was utterly alone. One rainy afternoon, a small envelope slipped through the mail slot. It was hers. No stamp, no address. Just my name in familiar handwriting, uneven, shaky. I held it, heart pounding, afraid to open it but desperate to know. Inside, a letter. She wrote about the loneliness that consumed her, the guilt that shadowed every day, and the love she still felt, tangled and messy but real. She begged for forgiveness but didn't ask to come back. She said she was searching for herself, trying to understand what she had done and who she had become. Reading those words, tears blurred my vision. It was the most honest thing she had ever given me. The apology I never heard in person, but there was something else. A request. To meet one last time. To talk. To say goodbye. That night, I sat alone in the park near our old house, waiting for her. Rain mixed with tears I didn't bother to wipe away. When she arrived, soaked and shivering, I barely recognized her. Gone was the confident woman I once knew, replaced by someone fragile and raw. We talked for hours about mistakes, regrets, and shattered dreams. No accusations, just truths laid bare. For the first time, I saw beyond the betrayal to the woman who was lost and scared. But healing isn't a straight path. I had to choose, hold on to the pain or start letting go. That night, I found myself sitting on a cold bench in the park near our old house, the one where we brought Ethan home for the first time. The rain was relentless, mixing with the tears I wasn't even trying to hide anymore. The streets glistened under the streetlights, but inside me was a storm far darker than any weather outside. When Anna arrived, she was soaked to the bone, hair plastered to her face, eyes hollow but burning with a raw kind of desperation. She looked smaller somehow, not just physically, but in spirit. The confident, vibrant woman I once loved seemed to have been replaced by someone broken and afraid. We sat in silence for a moment, the sound of rain our only company. Then she spoke, her voice trembling. "I never meant to hurt you," she said. "I was so lost, lonely. I thought if I just found someone to listen, it would fill the emptiness. But it only made it worse." I swallowed hard, wanting to lash out, but knowing anger wouldn't fix anything. So I asked the question I'd been too scared to say aloud. "Do you still love me?" Her eyes flickered with pain. "I don't know. I want to. I want us to find what we lost, but I don't know if I can." The hours passed like a slow tide, each wave washing away a bit more of the bitterness between us. We spoke not just of the affair, but of the dreams we abandoned, the cracks we ignored, the silence that grew too loud. For the first time, I saw beyond the betrayal, a woman drowning in her own fears, desperate to breathe again. But healing, I realized, isn't a straight path. It's jagged, uneven. Sometimes it leads back to love, sometimes to goodbye. That night, I faced a choice, to cling to the wreckage or to try building something new, even if that meant starting over alone. A week later, we met again. This time, in the quiet corner of a small cafe. No children, no distractions, just us and the weight of everything unsaid. I looked at her face, tracing the lines etched by sleepless nights and guilt. She looked tired, but there was a flicker of something like hope in her eyes. "Dan," she began softly, "I've been thinking about us, about who we were, who we are, and what we could still be. I know I hurt you, more than I ever imagined. And I'm sorry. I'm truly sorry." I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. "I don't know if I can forgive you yet. Maybe I never will. But I want to understand. Why?" She took a shaky breath. I was scared. Scared of losing myself. Scared of being invisible. I thought the affair would fill that void. It didn't. It only made everything worse. We talked for hours about love and pain, about mistakes and regrets, about the children, our future, the fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, we could find a way forward, or at least find peace. When we left, there was no promise, no certainty, just a quiet understanding that some wounds run deep, but honesty can be the first step toward healing. And sometimes, that's all you can ask for. The days after that conversation felt different, fragile, like the first cracks of dawn after a long, dark night. I started to piece my life back together, though the pieces didn't fit quite like before. The house felt emptier without her, but I found small comforts in routines I'd neglected for years. Mornings became moments of quiet reflection rather than a chaotic scramble. I took Ethan and Mia to school myself, relishing those stolen hours. Watching their laughter and innocence remind me of what I was fighting for. I even picked up running again, pounding the pavement, trying to outrun the pain and confusion. At work, I found a strange sense of focus. My mind, once clouded by doubt and heartbreak, sharpened with purpose. I buried myself in projects, deadlines, and meetings, but not to escape, to rebuild. Anna and I kept the conversation open but distant. We spoke about the kids, their needs, and sometimes shared memories, bittersweet moments that reminded us of what had been good. There was no rush to fix what was broken, only a mutual respect for the fragility of what remained. Slowly, I began to see a version of life I hadn't imagined, one that wasn't defined by perfect love, but by imperfect healing. Pain was still there, a shadow in every corner, but so was resilience. And in that resilience, I found a tentative hope. A hope that even from the ashes of betrayal and loss, new life could grow. Maybe not the one we dreamed of, but one we could survive. As the months passed, the sharp edges of pain dulled into a complex ache, a reminder of love's fragility and the cost of human mistakes. I learned that forgiveness isn't a gift you give to someone else, it's a release you grant yourself. Holding on to anger only shackled me to a past I couldn't change. I learned that love isn't enough. Not always. Sometimes it's messy, tangled in fear, loneliness, and unmet needs. Sometimes, even when you want to hold on, the other person is already slipping away. I learned that people are complicated, flawed, broken, trying to survive in their own ways. Anna wasn't a villain, just a woman who lost her way. And I wasn't a martyr, just a man broken by betrayal. I learned to stop blaming myself. I did my best with what I knew. Sometimes, that's all you can do. I learned to listen again, to myself, to my kids, to the quiet voice inside that tells you to keep going, even when everything falls apart. And most of all, I learned that endings are rarely neat. They are jagged and painful, but can be the start of something new. I don't know what the future holds for me or Anna. Maybe our paths will cross again. Maybe they won't. But now, I carry these lessons with me, scars and all, as a map for moving forward. Sometimes, in the quiet moments before sleep, a memory comes back, clear as day but painful as ever. It was a summer afternoon, years before everything fell apart. We were at the park, under the wide branches of that old oak tree where Ethan first learned to ride his bike. Anna sat on a bench nearby, sunlight catching her hair, smiling at our son's wobbly efforts. She caught my eye and waved me over. "Look at him, Dan," she said, voice soft. "We did something good here. Something real." I smiled, feeling a warmth I thought would never fade. I reached for her hand, and she squeezed it gently. That moment, so simple, so perfect, now feels like a distant dream. I wonder sometimes if she remembers it, too, or if the distance between us has buried those memories beneath the rubble of regret. It's haunting, this contrast between past and present. The woman who loved, the woman who left, and the man caught in the middle, trying to hold onto what little light remains. But even in that darkness, those memories are proof that love once existed, messy, flawed, but real. And maybe that's enough to keep going. The last months have been a slow unraveling and, in some ways, a gentle closure. Anna didn't come back. She stayed with her sister, trying to rebuild her own shattered pieces. We agreed on shared custody of the kids, doing our best to shield them from the wreckage of our fractured love. I moved into a smaller apartment, not far from the school, trying to carve out a new space, not just physically, but inside myself. The silence is different now. It's not heavy with tension, but soft with acceptance. Some nights, I still stare out the window, thinking of what could have been. The dreams we dreamed, the promises we made. But I've learned to let go of those ghosts. The pain is still there, but it's quieter, more distant. It's a scar, a reminder that love can break you, but it can also teach you how to heal. I've come to understand that sometimes, love isn't enough to hold two people together. Sometimes, the kindest thing is to let go. And in letting go, there's a strange kind of peace. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe I'll love again. Maybe I won't. But I do know this. The story we wrote, with all its twists and heartbreak, was real. And that, somehow, makes it worth telling. The months turned into a year. Life settled into a new rhythm. Unpredictable, but steady. I started seeing a therapist, someone who helped me untangle the knots inside my mind and heart. It wasn't magic, it was hard work. Long conversations, uncomfortable truths, and moments where I had to face parts of myself I had buried deep. Slowly, I learned to forgive, not just Anna, but myself. To let go of the blame and the bitterness. To open space for peace. I met new people too. Nothing serious, just friendships at first. People who listened without judgment, who reminded me that life could still be full of connection and laughter. One evening, walking home after dinner with a friend, I felt a flicker of something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Not the flashy, blinding kind. A quiet ember, glowing softly inside. Maybe it was the start of something new. Or maybe just a moment of peace. Either way, I was ready to see where it would lead. Life, as it often does, surprised me. One rainy afternoon, I received a package at my apartment. No return address, just my name scrawled in familiar handwriting. Inside was a small photo album. I opened it carefully. The pages held pictures of Anna and the kids, candid shots I hadn't seen before. Moments of laughter, sleepy mornings, quiet afternoons. Photos she had taken and never shared. There was a note tucked inside. For when you need to remember the good. I hope one day we both find peace. My chest tightened. The bitterness I'd held on to started to loosen, replaced by something more complex. Sadness, yes. Regret, for sure. But also gratitude for the love that once was, imperfect as it had been. I realized then that even in endings, there can be gifts. Memories that heal instead of hurt. Lessons that shape us. And hope that refuses to die. I placed the album on my shelf, a testament to a chapter closed, but not forgotten. In the solitude of my new life, I discovered something unexpected, strength. Not the loud, heroic kind that movies show, but quiet, stubborn resilience that grows from pain and loss. I found strength in the early mornings when the house was still dark, and I made breakfast for Ethan and Mia, trying to be both mom and dad. I found it in the school runs, the doctor appointments, the endless school projects and bedtime stories. I found strength in the nights when I felt utterly alone but refused to let despair take hold. And I found it in myself, in the man who survived heartbreak and still dared to hope. It hasn't been easy. Some days, the ache feels unbearable. Some nights, I wake up missing her so deeply it takes my breath away. But with every sunrise, I remind myself, this is my life now. It's not the one I planned, but it's mine. And I will keep walking forward. Because sometimes, that's the bravest thing you can do. Years have passed since that night when everything fell apart. The wounds have faded but remain. Faint scars that tell a story of love, loss, and survival. I'm not the same man I was. The innocence and certainty I once carried have been replaced by wisdom carved from pain. I've learned that life doesn't always go the way we imagine. That love can break us, but it can also teach us how to heal. Ethan and Mia are growing up, resilient and full of light, a daily reminder that hope is never lost. Anna and I have found a fragile peace, no longer entwined as partners, but connected by the family we built and the memories we shared. I've learned to forgive, not to forget, but to release the weight that held me down. And as I stand at this new dawn, I see that endings are not just about loss. They're about beginnings, too. The chance to write a new story, one shaped by pain but defined by strength. If you're hearing this story, really hearing it, I want you to know you're not alone. Love is messy. It's painful. It breaks us open and sometimes burns us to the ground. But it also teaches us who we are, what we can endure, what we need to forgive, and where we find strength we never knew existed. Maybe you've been betrayed. Maybe you've made mistakes you regret. Maybe you're still holding on to someone who's already gone. Or maybe you're the one who's lost, searching for a way back. No matter where you are in your journey, remember this. Healing isn't linear. It's a winding path, filled with setbacks and small victories. Some days you'll feel like falling apart, and some days you'll discover new pieces of yourself. Take your time. Be kind to yourself. Reach out when you need to. And above all, keep moving forward. Because there's always hope, even when the night feels the darkest. If this story touched you, please subscribe and turn on notifications. More stories like this are coming. Stories about real people, real emotions, and the complicated beauty of being human. Thank you for listening. You're stronger than you think.